Paternalism is the attitude that the U.S. government had toward Native Americans. The paternalistic government interfered against their wishes for their own good. Examples of this policy can be seen by the government's attempt to assimilate American Indians into the mainstream white culture. The government felt that if Native Americans were part of the American culture, they would be much happier. This would lead to the breaking up of tribes, death of their spirit, and annihilation of Native American culture and way of life. In 1887, the government passed the Dawes Act, which broke up reservation land for tribes and attempted to assign land to each individual family. However, much of the land was not well distributed, and whites claimed much of the land as their own due to the commercial value it held. As a result, many Native Americans moved to the city for jobs. While acknowledging that much of land in North America was of the Native Americans, colonists and white Americans made treaties and have broken them time and time again. This began with the first official one that was ever created in 1778, the Treaty of Fort Pitt. The treaty was an alliance between the Delaware's Indians and the American colonists. It gave the United States the right to travel through Delaware and asked for the Native Americans to help American troops whenever they might need it in their war effort against the British. In return, the U.S. promised them valuable goods such as articles of clothing, utensils, and implements of war. Within a year, the alliance had fallen apart and the Delawares joined the war with the British. That is just one of the many treaties that the U.S. government has broken with the Native Americans. In fact, every single treaty that the U.S. has made with the tribes of Native Americans has been broken. In 1980, the Sioux tribe sued the federal government for breaking the Treaty of Fort Laramie. The Supreme Court ruled in their favor and offered them a large sum of money, but the Sioux refused the money and demanded their territory back. Their lack of private property ownership prohibited them from receiving federal aid when the Great Depression hit in the 1930s. Between 1945 to 1980, the Native American population increased to over 1 million, and reservations were too small due to the Dawes Act. The land was barren and unsuitable for farming. The majority lived to the west of the Mississippi River, in Oklahoma, Arizona, and in California. If there were any minerals or oils found on their land, big businesses would come and exploit the land. Native Americans, however, would not see any of the benefits. In 1924, the Indian Citizenship Act gave citizenship to Native Americans who did not already have it, including the right to vote. However, in many Western states, Native Americans were denied the right to vote, much like how African Americans were barred from their right to vote in the South. In 1975, a black member of the House of Representatives, Barbara Jordan, campaigned to extend the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to confront the discrimination of language minority groups. During World War II, thousands of Native Americans contributed, which helped them bring recognition as a group. There are 550 Indian tribes that are recognized by the U.S. programs passed by the Bureau of Indian Affairs or other federal agencies. There are many tribes that live in the shadow of existence, unhelped by these agencies because they're unrecognized. The country simply doesn't acknowledge their existence. Much like the designated African American segregated schools, schools on reservations were badly funded and largely overcrowded. Because of underfunding, there is not enough medicine or facilities to address the health issues of Native Americans. Due to paternalism and assimilation, the shift to Western lifestyles created an epidemic of chronic diseases, such as heart disease, diabetes, tuberculosis, and cancer. There is also high rates of suicide between ages 16 and 25. Alcoholism was also rampant on reservations. During the Truman administration, the ban on alcohol was lifted, even though prohibition was repealed for the rest of America 20 years earlier. This was another instance of paternalism in policies that were implemented for their own good.
Wiping diseases I could not cure. My father told me of countless of stories of the cruel deaths they brought upon my family. How they only had enough medicine to cure so many people. How they couldn't save my mother. Countless members of tribes ceased to be. So many, in fact, that the Pokemon ceased to exist. The invaders don't even bother to recognize us as a tribe. Me and my family, we are simply nothing.
We, Native Americans, have been abused and discriminated all throughout history. People seem to forget that they're living on our land that was ours, way before it was theirs. What can we do? Take back the country? No, we want our lives back. With your help, we can reconquer a place in society. Call 1-800-NATIVES.